And what's that place on the wharf? It's like Kulani's? Or do you know the Hawaiian place with the
Mackay's.
Mackay's?
What?
I don't know what's
Yeah.
Kulani.
Mackay's, yeah.
Mackay's. They have this drink called the hula berry. Absolutely should try it.
What
It's
is it?
sparkly pink and it has a flower in it and it's like the best like cocktail ever. And I had like 3 hula berries.
And it comes in those cool little cups.
It comes in crazy cups and like it's super tall and skinny and like they have a striped straw and it's like literally glistening and then we sat on the rotating bar. It's so fun. Wait, what was I gonna ask you? Oh, you started a new job. How was it?
Yes.
Wait, so what was the job? Start over.
So well, first let me talk about the coral place because my
Mhm.
last day on the coral place was pretty interesting.
Oh my gosh.
So I'd been working there for about 7-ish months or so,
Mm-hmm.
and it was all under the same management for the last 20 years. It was this man, we call it Boss Man.
Right. Which I remember you first telling me about this. I was like, this seems weird.
Yeah.
Like weird hierarchy. Like
Yeah, I don't know why we called him Boss Man, but we called him Boss Man.
was it like Sergeant Boss? Like
No,
was it
no,
like
no, no.
Boss Man, or it was like, hey, Boss.
It's like, what's up, Boss Man? Like Boss Man.
Okay, like chill.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so then on my last day, he comes in and he's everybody into his meeting. He's like, yeah, after 20 years, I never thought I'd be selling the business, but he's still selling the business, but he sold it to 3 employees that week.
What? And one of them was you.
No.
I'm just kidding.
He sold to 3 employees. And so I was like, I'm really interested how this logistically works, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I wait for one of them to come in later. And I start talking to one of the guys, and I'm like, so you guys own this now? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, you guys bought it off of him? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, how does that work? And so he's like, okay, so we pay $1 million up front.
Whoa.
Keep in mind, these guys are my age.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yes.
And they have $1 million
No.
to give him?
Nobody has $1 million. You know what you got to do?
Investors.
Investors. Exactly.
No way.
Somehow
who's investing in this business?
Coral can turn a profit. So they're paying $1 million up front.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other $3 million, they bought it for $4 million.
Wow.
But the other $3 million they have to pay off over the next 5 years.
Yeah. So that was the day you left?
Yes.
That's wild. It's like you had like a spidey sense.
But also, you know what my first day on the job was?
What?
I had crazy first days and last day. My first day on the job, somebody had a heart attack and there was a fire.
In the coral place?
Yes.
Oh my god.
Something short circuited and then it started to
From the leaking water things?
There was a plug and then the plug fell into the water and so it started short circuiting and then it started like creating a lot of heat and then it started burning the PVC pipe and it smelled like smoke and then we had to go turn off all the power and it was like, God, it was a shit show. So now my new job, environmental canvasser. You know, those people standing outside of like Whole Foods trying to get.
So you're not door to door?
No, gladly.
Yeah, that is nice.
But you're in front of like Whole Foods or like we were in La Jolla Cove just talking to people and it's tough, man. I have respect for those people now.
When you said that, I was like, more power to you. And you're like, I love it. I'm going to talk to people. And you are so social. But I was like, that is like thankless work. Like that is the hardest shit to do.
Because what I've realized is I like talking to people when they're willing to learn.
Yes, when they want to talk to you.
Yeah, but talking to people when they're not really willing to learn is demoralizing.
It is. It's like being rejected 2,000 million times a day. It's
yes.
Like literal hell.
Because you know what our like pickup pitch was?
What? And you have to say this?
You don't have to, but it works. It works pretty well. And, and you do get people to laugh. So like somebody be walking by and you'd be like, hey, sorry, I don't know if you heard, but there's a new rule. Anybody wearing blue today has to talk to us about the blue earth. And then you see, you giggled.
Yeah, that's cute. I mean, that's good. That's a good little thing.
So they'll kind of giggle and then you're like, hey, have you heard of the Nature Conservancy?
Oh, it's for the Nature Conservancy?
Yeah.
No, you can't quit.
Yeah.
Well, you can't quit. I'll take it.
No.
Wait, what if, how many hours you're trying to do 40 hours of this?
I'm not doing this job no more.
No, what happened though?
It's just.
You haven't quit.
No, I haven't quit yet.
So you are doing this job.
No, because I have other things that are potentially in the works still.
Okay. One step at a time. So you have worked there how long?
3 days. 2 days in the field. Yeah.
And you're already over.
I'm done.
No, that's the highest turnover job, I swear.
Yeah, it is. It's one of the highest turnover jobs.
It's so hard.
I got a donor though.
One?
Yeah.
After 2 whole days?
Yeah.
How much are they donating?
$30 a month.
Hey, that's
the minimum.
Minimum?
Yes. So imagine trying to tell people $30 is the minimum.
Yeah, that's crazy. What do you mean? You can't even tell people that. You're supposed to just be like, oh, whatever you can do, you can do.
Yeah, well, this is different. So $30.
Nature Conservancy, I always wanted to work for them, but not canvassing.
No, same. I would love to work for the Nature Conservancy. Please hire me, but not the canvassing.
Do you follow them on LinkedIn? They do so much cool shit.
Of course, I follow them on LinkedIn.
Wow. Okay.
So, should we sign ourselves in?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of
Biophilia. Today, I got an episode that Haley really wanted me to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think it will be a good episode.
Can I say why I wanted you to do it?
Yes.
So I don't really know anything about this, but I have just been seeing, okay, preface. I try to remove myself from all news because it makes me way too depressed, like in life. And I've just picked my causes. I go hard on those causes. A lot of them are nature focused. And I just don't really pay attention to the news, and I don't go on social media, and I don't do anything like that because it's just overwhelming to me. But every time I'm on any sort of news, my news networks are like nature related. So I've just been seeing like this huge increase of whales washing up on shores all along the California coast, or even like all coasts. And it's like way more prevalent than I feel like it's ever been throughout my life. You hear about it, okay, maybe once every few years. It's like this huge thing, and everybody goes and they're like, oh my gosh, it stinks so bad. Like, what the heck? But that's like all I've been seeing. So I'm like, what's going on? I wanted Chris to like talk about what's happening in the oceans, what's the real news about it. Because honestly, again, made me a little sad. And I was like, okay, what? I can't really read about it, but I wanted you to tell us about it. So that's where I'm at.
Okay. Well, this animal is actually our California state marine mammal.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, aquatic mammal.
Marine.
Marine.
Mammal.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So today I'll be talking about the gray whale.
Woohoo!
So you know where we're going to start, right?
Wait. This is the worst question ever, but which one is larger, the gray whale or the blue whale?
The blue. The blue is the
Blue is the largest
Yeah.
marine mammal or mammal.
Animal.
Animal.
I think, yeah, it's just the largest.
I think it is.
Yeah. It's not the largest organism, but it's the largest animal.
What's the largest organism?
Fungus.
Oh, it makes so much sense.
The root
makes
system's
so
down below.
much sense.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You know where we start though, right?
The scientific name.
The scientific name.
Oh my God.
Okay.
I actually include this in mine.
Good. It's good to know. It's just like, it's kind of funny to hear how it breaks down. All right. So the gray whale is Ischrychtius. So that's the first word. Robustus. So Ischrychtius honors Danish zoologist Daniel Frederick Istryk, who made significant contributions to the study of marine mammals, particularly whales. So I think it's kind of cool that he got the genus rather than the actual species name.
Yeah, that's huge. He must have done a lot.
But it's also a mono genus, like, so he's the only animal.
Oh,
yeah,
kind of a robbery then.
Yeah, low key. And then robustus meaning is Latin word for strong, sturdy, or robust. So this can pretty much be translated to Ischrychti's robust whale. It's kind of whatever scientific name. This one's
okay. So just like a big whale of this guy that found it, or whatever.
One of the more lame.
Well, no, it's not lame, but it's like just not as on the nose as some other ones. Some are like so.
The purple sea urchin was so funny,
and the banana slug, like that was so funny. But this is just like, okay, it's the guy, and it's like large and
they're part of the phylum Chordata, which is what we are part of, humans. They're part of the class Mammalia, and characteristics of mammals are milk-producing mammillary glands that feed their young. A broad neocortex region of the brain. So the neocortex region of the brain does like sensory perception, motor commands, cognition, language, memory, social behavior. So kind of like elevated thinking. I was kind of thinking about it. Fur or hair, and 3 middle ear bones.
Wait, fur or hair?
Whales have that.
Like in what? Like just tiny hair glands?
Yeah,
but you can't really see it. But
they're not furry, but like you can. There's hair on them. And then they are part of the order Artiodactyla, which is even-toed animals that have like hooves, pretty much, like deer, zebras.
Interesting. Yeah. They're like, I remember learning that a whale is closer related to like a horse than it is like, or a camel or something, than it is something else like in the ocean. And I was like, how is that possible?
A whale is closer related to a deer than it is to a shark.
Yeah. Isn't that wild?
Which is so bizarre.
Yeah.
And also, these guys they need to change how taxonomy works, because
let's rewrite the whole thing.
It's so bizarre because right now I'm on order, and then there's different levels of order. There's suborder, and then there's infraorder. And so they're part of the infraorder cetaceans, which are like whales, dolphins.
But then does it zoom back out to order to go down to like other classifications, or does it go like infraorder and then infra What's next?
No,
Family.
no. And then, but it's just bizarre that they break order down so many different times.
Yeah, before they just go down in like species or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So there's cetaceans, which are like whales, dolphins, porpoises. They're those kind of things. But like Haley was saying, they have land-dwelling mammals back in the history.
Mm-hmm.
So here's
What's that one organism that was like the first?
Tiktaalik.
Is that what it is? Tiktaalik or whatever?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Are you sure that's the name?
Which one are you talking about?
The first
Fish that
aquatic
became a
species that went into land. And it's like it has the the fingers.
Yeah,
and,
Tiktaalik,
like,
the little like
I think it is.
yeah. That's the homie right there.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a cool little thing. Molecular studies and fossil evidence reveal that cetaceans are most closely related to hippos, which kind of makes sense.
How so?
You think of a hippo, then you think of like whales and dolphins. I feel like you can kind of see how that morphed into that. Like you just retract the legs inside.
I guess, yeah. What else would it be closely related to? But then, like, again, like you're saying, kind of like sharks. How is that not closely related?
Yeah. Earth, figure it out, guys. Come on. And then here's just like a little bit like a history about like millions of years ago how this actually happened.
Okay.
So the evolutionary shift from land to water occurred around 50 million years ago. The earliest known cetacean orders were small wolf-like mammals that lived near water bodies and fed pretty much on aquatic prey. And then around 40 to 35 million years ago, cetaceans became fully aquatic, resembling whales.
Whoa. So Tiktaalik went on land, became something diversified, specified into a land mammal wolf-like creature.
And then we went back in the water.
And then went back?
Yes, and then we went back in the water.
What?
We yearn for the water.
That's crazy.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's crazy, but then again, you probably think about like
the
Earth at those different phases, and it made sense.
And it made sense. And also, I'm thinking about like prey availability, and if you have to go into the water for prey, and if you're going in there all the time, like you're gonna evolve, and that's wild.
Yeah. I mean, it took 10 to 15 million years from their ancestors that were like wolf-like mammals that lived near the bottom of water to where they fully resembled an aquatic animal. It took a lot of time.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm going to dive into a little bit of the biology of these whales.
Okay.
They're baleen whales. And
what does that mean?
I was going to say, I'm going to dive into that. So baleen are pretty much what they use to sieve plankton from the water and other little food sources like that. They're flexible hair-like structures made of keratin, so the same protein that makes humans' hairs and nails. And I didn't know this, but this is actually pretty cool. They grow from rows in the upper jaw, so not the bottom jaw, but only the upper jaw.
Oh.
And there's little indentations in the upper jaw. That's where each hair follicle shoots down.
Have you ever felt baleen yourself?
I feel like I have, and I feel like it feels like a broom kind of.
Exactly. I was going to say, it's so
brittle,
coarse, and it's like a witch's broom. Like that's how I would describe it. It's very thick. Yeah.
They're cream, off-white, or blonde in color, and gray whales, baleen's are actually very short because of how they get into their feeding. But I'll get into that in a second. Their size. Take a guess on how just their dimensions of these guys.
Huge. 2 school buses.
Well, translate that into feet for me.
No. 100. No. That's too big. 60 feet?
Okay, that's a good guess. Just give me length.
Oh, wait. Length and weight. Okay.
Yeah.
Length, I think they are about like 60 feet long or 50. That's long. Okay. And then weight. Oh my gosh. How would they even get a weight on these?
I don't know.
Okay. 1,000 pounds or more. More?
1,000 pounds?
Is that light or little?
Dog, that's so light.
Okay. 20,000 pounds.
Okay. I'll let those ones slide. Okay. So the gray whales, this is like more on like
the length, maybe.
Yeah, I'll say this is like more for like an adult size animal. They're about 49 feet.
Okay. Huge.
Way up to.
Okay, but think about that in like what is about 50 feet? Because I want to like be able to picture it.
Yeah.
It says about the length of a semi-trailer truck.
Okay. So I guess that's
so like a semi-truck.
Yeah, pretty much what you can equate it to.
Okay.
So they're huge.
The height of a 5-story building. You
can see these are very large animals. Their lifespan is between 50 to 70 years, although one female was estimated to be 75 to 80 years of age. So they can live around for quite a while. And as most species, females are slightly larger than males. They are obviously gray. That's what they are called, the gray whales. Calves, which are the baby whales, are typically born dark gray and lighten as they age up. So they kind of lighten up with their color. And they're covered by characteristic gray-white patterns. This is literally how they identify the animals, is because of these patterns. And what these patterns are from.
Like identify gray whales as a species or gray whale from gray whale.
Individual.
Yeah. Okay.
This is how they identify individual gray whales, is these white patches. And these are scars left by parasites that drop off when they get into the cold feeding grounds.
Mm-hmm.
And higher concentrations are found on their head and their tail.
Is it symbiotic or whatever? Like
I would think
mutually
it's
beneficial?
I would guess it's parasitic because it says parasite.
Okay.
But I don't think it's symbiotic. I thought this was actually pretty cool. They have 2 blowholes on the top of their head.
What?
And when they blow out, it creates a distinctive heart-shaped blow at the surface in calm wind conditions.
What?
Yeah.
That's super cool.
It lacks a dorsal fin. So it doesn't have one on its back. But instead has 6 to 12 dorsal knuckles, which are these raised bumps on the midline of their rear. So like about 3/4 down their back.
Yeah.
They have these little bumps. And then eventually this leads to the flukes, which is the tail. And this area is known as the dorsal ridge.
Sort of like a humpback, because it's good for like water
aerodynamics. Yeah, water dynamics. Hydrodynamics.
Hydrodynamics.
That's the right word.
Yeah.
And the tail flukes are nearly 10 feet wide.
Whoa.
Huge.
That's crazy.
That's like 2 people almost. And I thought this was pretty cool. Found something about their breathing patterns. The breathing patterns are actually predictable. They'll exhale 3 to 5 times from their blowholes at intervals of about 15 to 30 seconds. And then they'll grit air, and then they can stay submerged for about 15 minutes, but upwards of 30, depending on how deep they go.
Whoa. That's crazy.
And then also when they're underwater, they slow their heart rates down by almost 50% so they conserve energy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which is cool. This was also very interesting. I didn't know this was a thing. Their skin secretes small droplets of an oily substance, which help reduces drag and increases their speed.
Whoa.
Like a lipid bilayer almost, on like literal lipid.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So like it's
looped
like,
up. They're literally looped up.
Hydrophobic, I assume.
That is hydrophobic, yes. Yeah.
Whoa.
Which is pretty cool. I didn't know that was even.
They're greased up.
Yeah, literally like a greased up missile, just
going through.
I think this is the similarity with a lot of aquatic animals, but their kidneys are able to get rid of a ton of salt they take in from the seawater they drink or whatever. So their reproduction, they become sexually mature between 6 to 12 years, and guess how long their gestation period is?
A year?
Pretty good. 12 to 13 months of gestation.
Yeah.
And then the females will generally give birth to one calf. Calves are approximately 14 to 16 feet long.
Oh my God.
And weigh up to 2,000 pounds.
Jesus.
So they just come out that big.
That's wild. And it's live birth, obviously.
Yeah,
so they just come out and they start swimming.
Yeah. And they're nursed for up to 7 months.
Wow, this is a really long, nurturing period.
Yeah. And the moms are super protective of their calves. These are one of the whales where, like, if you were to interfere with it, it's going to hit you. It's going to do something.
Yeah.
Actually, they're known as devilfish from back in the day when there was whale hunters, whatever they're called. They were known as devilfish because of their protective behaviors.
Whoa.
And their behavior, they're frequently observed traveling alone or in small groups. They're not really like big clusters of people. Not like orcas where they ride in pods.
Yeah.
These are just like more lonely kind of people. Large aggregations do occur.
People.
Though.
I love that you keep saying people.
They are people.
They're people too.
I mean, you got to refer to animals as people.
Yes.
Otherwise, people
reframe your thinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
We are one collective thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, they do obviously aggregate in large groups at like feeding and breeding grounds and stuff like that. But during traveling, it's generally just kind of solo dolo. And there's not really long-term bonds between individuals.
Okay. So even male female like reproductive relationships, it's like a one and done situation.
Okay. A lot of times it's actually like a bunch of guys trying to impregnate one.
Oh, okay. So
it's kind of like Brunions. Shout out that episode. You guys go check it out. It's actually our most viewed episode. So thank you guys for that. And now their feeding is pretty interesting compared to other whales. They're primary bottom feeders.
What?
Yes, that consume a wide range of benthic and epibenthic, which is just like animals above the seafloor. So what they do...
But bottom.
Yes.
Bottom of the seafloor, but above the seafloor itself.
No, like bottom seafloor and above it.
But benthic means bottom.
Yes. Benthic and epibenthic.
Oh, okay. I hear you.
So the bottom and just above the bottom.
Okay.
And you know how they do this?
No.
So they suck sediment in from the seafloor. They roll onto their side while they're swimming and like literally like shovel through the dirt and stuff. And so they're getting like weird little animals in the mud and above it because, you know, they're kind of going sideways
Yeah.
through it.
They're on their side?
Yes. Literally just scooping it up.
Whoa.
Yeah. And they filter the food through 130 to 180 coarse baleen plates on each side of the upper jaw. So a ton of them.
Wow. So that's how they get all the goods without all the sand.
Exactly. And then this often leaves long trails of mud behind them. And this is called feeding pits.
Feeding bits?
Feeding pits.
Pits.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting that this whale, because usually when I think of whales, you know, they come up and they're like, whoop, and they like grab a bunch of shit.
Yeah, or like bubble net feeding or something.
Yeah.
Or like, I didn't know any of them were benthic feeders.
Yeah. And so this is why this one has a really short baleen because it needs probably more resistance when it's going through the dirt.
Yeah, totally.
They're just bizarre animals in general, these guys. And then what do you think kills these animals?
Boat collisions, mostly.
Okay, well, animal king, I guess, non-human imposed ones.
Okay. Honestly,
Who are the kings of the ocean?
sharks?
No,
Who?
orcas.
Oh. Orcas are eating gray whales?
Yes.
Orcas are kind of gnarly.
Orcas.
You should do an orca episode.
I'm going to do an orca episode eventually.
Because orcas are crazy.
Yeah,
they're so aggressive, but also, did you know that they're dolphins?
Yeah, they're porpoises.
Yeah. That's so wild to me.
I mean, do you know, like, I watched this recent documentary about them, and they're starting to attack great white sharks now.
Mm-hmm.
And
I saw that too.
And they just eat the liver. That's it.
What?
They leave the whole body.
They're freaks.
Oh, yeah. They're crazy, and they're so smart.
They're so smart, and that's what's scary, because they are so smart, and they're so calculated and specific.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely going to do an episode on them.
Yeah.
So obviously, orcas are the animal kingdom threats, but there's also a lot of human threats. So I'm going to dive into a lot of the human threats now.
Okay.
So there's entanglement in fishing gear. This is just where like whales will drag and swim with gear attached to them. Usually when people are doing like bottom dwelling fishing, where they just use nets that drop all the way to the bottom. And this generally the whales will kind of get stuck in place and will result in fatigue and compromised feeding ability or even severe injury.
Yeah.
And so recently though, there are people that go out there and remove fishing line from whales. Like you can call it in if you see it.
Who's doing that? Do you know like the Stranding Center or something?
I forget the exact center, but there's a lot of groups that are doing it, but like Whaling Co or like
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
And then another thing that humans do that causes death upon them is vessel strikes.
Right, that's what I said.
And this is generally where there's highly populated actions, so like San Francisco Bay, anywhere where there's big ports, pretty much.
Could you imagine your boat hitting a gray whale?
So also what they were talking about, I was reading about it, is they're one of the whales that you don't really see coming. They're not like a humpback whale where they make a lot of prevalence.
Right.
Or presence. So it's kind of one of those ones where you don't really see it until it's like almost too late. So that's one of the problems with them.
So sad. Or orcas. You always see orcas.
Yeah, or you always see orcas. I think it's partially because they don't have a dorsal fin. You don't see that coming up.
Yeah.
And then another problem that we're causing to them is ocean noise, because these guys are pretty much speak directly with noise. So when we do our own loud construction underwater or whatever else we're doing, it reduces the ability of whales to communicate with each other.
Because they're echolocators? Yeah.
Increases their stress levels.
And also they're sing-songers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They all have like their own songs. I know a bunch of people add scripts that do that.
What, study gray whale sounds? Yeah.
So the ocean noises, like I was saying, increases their stress levels, interrupts their normal behavior, and will generally just like displace them from important areas for survival because they don't want to deal with that stuff. Another thing that we're doing that's killing them is habitat degradation. And this is like resulting from offshore oil and gas development rigs and stuff like that. And then almighty, all-encompassing anthropogenic climate change, obviously, is causing a lot of problems with these guys. It's the largest threat. It disrupts timing and distribution of sea ice coverage, which then results in prey distribution and just completely kind of fucks up their whole cycle. So climate change, always the main problem with pretty much any animal species on the face of the earth right now, including humans.
Yeah.
Their migration is so long.
Really?
I learned that some of them do insane, like unfathomably long migration. Like absolutely absurd amount. So they make one of the largest annual migrations of any mammal, traveling around 10,000 miles.
Whoa.
Round trip, and upwards of 14,000 miles.
Oh my God.
So I can't
From where to where?
Here's the thing. This is where it gets really cool. There are two populations of gray whales.
Oh, subspecies?
No, there is the Western Pacific group
Uh-huh.
and the Eastern Pacific group. So the
Whoa.
Western Pacific group would be like Japan, Korea, China, Russia.
Whoa.
And then there's the Eastern Pacific group.
You never think about,
I know, right?
I think about the world a little linearly, like
Yeah.
in that way. Like you don't realize until you look at a globe, you're like, it's right there.
Well, it's not right there.
But it is. Like our closest, if you went the other way, Japan is close.
It's not close, but it's the closest land.
Right. Exactly. That's what I mean.
I'm going to get into it. I do like a little bit of geography here because you kind of have to.
Yeah.
And then the Eastern population will go from like Baja California up to Alaska.
Okay.
The Western population group over in Russia is endangered.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably because they had looser
I'm
whaling
sure.
regulations back in the day.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Or even probably still now.
Yeah, even now. I mean, everybody's seen those like horror videos. What was that one everybody watched?
Oh my gosh, don't even.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I forgot what it was called.
Yeah.
But everybody knows
Oh
which
my
one I'm
God,
talking
yeah.
about. The Western population's migration route is between the Sea of Okhotsk, which is north of Japan, up into like Russia, because you know how Russia is like way, way up there.
Mm-hmm.
So that they kind of go along that coastline. And I looked at it on a map to see like latitude, what's kind of equivalent to. It's pretty much equivalent to middle of California to the Gulf of Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're doing on latitude wise. And then, like I was saying, the eastern traveling route is from Baja California to Alaska.
You mean Western?
Eastern. We're the eastern side of the Pacific. We're the west.
Whoa.
Yeah, we're the west coast of America, but the eastern side of the Pacific.
Wait, you're right.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a trip I've never thought about. Like,
yeah, trust me. When I was reading this, I kept on psyching myself
you're
out.
like, what's right?
Because I'm so used to feeling like, oh, West Coast.
West Coast, yeah.
You're really Eastern Pacific.
Uh-huh. No, I hear you.
And so mothers make this journey accompanied by their calves, usually hugging the shoreline, like shallows, like kelp beds and stuff like that. And this is where they get preyed on by orcas, because orcas know this. And so they'll kind of trap them in certain areas, coves and stuff like that. And this is why they get inflicted by so much human damage, is because they're so close to the shore.
Yeah. Why don't they just go further, deeper in the ocean?
Because think about how they eat.
Oh, and then it'd probably be more energetically taxing too, to be deeper in the ocean and then have to go all the way to the bottom and then come all the way back up. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
They have to hug the shoreline.
Mm-hmm.
So the eastern stock, the ones over by us, in the summer, they feed in middle Alaska, near like northern Bering and Chukchi Seas or something like that. It's somewhere up in Alaska. They pretty much eat in Alaska area during the summer.
Uh-huh.
Some do feed along the Pacific coast during the summer, like a little bit southern than that. And I actually talk about that later on. But most eat up in like Alaska area.
Mm-hmm.
And then during fall, they migrate heading south along the north coast of America to spend the winter in the calving areas off the coast of Baja California. Because if you think about it, when it's winter, you want to be in the warmer water, which is closer to the equator.
Yeah.
When it's summer and the water's a little bit warmer, you can go north.
So it's kind of like temperature regulation by traveling.
Exactly. Yeah. So calves, I thought this was kind of interesting, are born during migration or in shallow lagoons in Mexico.
Born during migration?
Yeah. Or in shallow lagoons in Mexico.
So it's on the way down.
Yeah, on the way down.
Somewhere around the beginning of Mexico?
Yeah.
So do you think that anything could be in San Diego?
Like baby whales?
Yeah. Like, 100%. Is there birthing around this area, like by the border area?
I wouldn't be surprised, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens January to mid-February.
Wow. Wait, that's great to know.
Mm-hmm. And then mid-February to May, the whales start migrating back northwards to go back up to Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty quick turnaround. It's like...
Yeah, they come all the way down, birth,
go back up.
Turn back, yeah.
And the most...
I mean, how long does that take?
Months. It's got to.
Okay, so it says gray whales undertake one of the longest mammal migrations, covering 10,000 to, I think you said 13,000 miles round trip annually. The southbound migration typically takes 2 to 3 months.
Wow.
While the northbound also takes 2 to 3 months.
Okay, so just so we can summarize this into one easier thing. Summer, they're in Alaska, feeding, getting fat.
Yep.
Then fall happens. They start to move back down the coastline towards Mexico, because in the winter, when it's warm in Mexico, that's where they give birth. Yep. And then in the spring, when the water starts to warm back up again, they go back up to their cold feeding grounds up in Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty cool. Wild how far they go. And just how they give birth to their calves, and then the calves just kind of have to get thrown into the loop and be like, all right, we're going. Take a guess on what you think their population is right now. At least the eastern Pacific one. The ones
which are ours.
along our coastline. How many do you think there are? This was also, their population was checked in 2015, 2016.
Honestly, sadly, I think it's like 1,000.
No, it's way more than that.
Okay. That's good.
Yeah.
3,000.
27,000.
What?
Yeah.
Where's the freaking space for these guys?
What do you mean? Look at the ocean, dog.
But they're huge.
Yeah.
I guess it does make sense because you kind of see them. Like I see them when I go like Santa Cruz or whatever.
Yeah.
Like you see them migrating down.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess it does make sense.
And it's not like I said, they're not traveling in packs, so they're kind of more dispersed.
Yeah.
They're kind of taking their own little routes, taking their own time.
Isn't that crazy that they have that like built-in GPS to know exactly where they are, where they're going, the timing of where they're going?
All that stuff trips me out, and I don't understand it because as humans, or at least I can't even say as humans of our society today and the way we live.
Yeah.
I'm so blind to it.
There's no animal intuition, I feel like. Anymore.
But obviously, if you look at tribes that have been untracked, they're pretty similar to this.
They're so in tune with what's going on. And even like native groups like that know like seasons and different things that like we just don't pay attention to and don't want to pay attention to as a society.
The language of the earth that we don't.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to talk about the Western population group. So the Western population group has a very slow growth rate, despite right now they have heavy conservation over there. But
that's good.
The reproduction rate is still low because you think if you only got a low amount, only a certain amount of
females. Yeah, and it takes a whole year to produce baby. Then you have to like nurture the baby and
to around 6 to 12 years to what that baby can have another baby.
Yeah,
so
it's just a long
super low the population hit an all-time low in 2010 when no new reproductive females were recorded.
Oh my gosh.
The whole year of just staying stagnant.
They're probably stressed out in the conditions over there and they can't reproduce and
Okay, but here's a good thing though. In 2018, there was evidence that indicated that the Western population is slowly starting to creep its population higher and higher up. Mm-hmm. So it actually got switched from critically endangered to endangered.
That's a win.
Yeah, so they went one tier up the stairs, but still many more to go.
Yeah.
And so this is really interesting. This is where I was like, holy shit, these guys move far. So photographs of 379 individuals were taken on the summer feeding grounds in Russia. So the Western population group. And they compared them to about 11,000 individuals identified in Mexico. 43 matches. So some of them
go all the way
from Mexico to Russia. So they breached the Pacific at the northern end.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Wait, are those ones? Whoa. So they're going the whole distance and some. Like to keep going.
Yes. They literally go from Russia.
So there has to be some genetic what's it called, genetic flow?
There is minimal genetic flow, yes.
Because if there's 50 whatever going back
about
and
43
forth.
of them, yeah.
Whoa.
So there is some genetic flow between the two populations, but it's minimal. And there's also
So can they reproduce with each other?
Yeah, of course they can. They're not different animals. They're just slightly different,
but are they technically subspecies?
No.
They're just different regionally, and they're maybe potentially genetic drift eventually.
It's just two different populations. So it's crazy that some whales that feed off Russia in summer migrate east across the Pacific and then down the west coast of America, while others will actually just kind of go back their normal route over to Japan.
Right.
So I thought that was crazy that animals can even swim that far.
Right.
Get this. There used to be Atlantic gray whales.
What? When?
Long time ago. So the Atlantic gray whale has been extinct in the North Atlantic since the 18th century or so. But here we go. In 2018, studies utilized ancient DNA barcoding and collagen peptide matrix fingerprinting. So pretty much just looking at the logistics of their DNA and stuff like that, confirmed that gray whales once ranged into the Mediterranean.
What?
Back in the 1700s, probably around then. There was gray whales in the Mediterranean.
That would be amazing.
And similarly, radiocarbon dating of American East Coast,
Say
West
what
Atlantic.
radiocarbon dating is.
Huh?
Say what radiocarbon dating is.
It's kind of just where you can look at the carbons in the animal's bones and it'll tell you they're aging in a certain way. Just a very broad breakdown of what it is. And so on our East Coast, but the Atlantic's West Coast, they found remains that existed from gray whales, and they were there around the 17th century. So like I was saying, 18th century is when they kind of went extinct, but the 17th century, they were both on the Mediterranean, so Europe, and East Coast of America.
Wow.
So these things were pretty wide ranged. But get this. In the 2010s, there have been occasional sightings of gray whales in the Atlantic Ocean.
What?
And in the Mediterranean Sea. Yes. So including one off the coast of Israel.
Wait, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. Who's reporting this?
Randoms. Just,
well, then do we trust?
Yes, there's pictures.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was one sighting off the coast of Israel, another one off the coast of Namibia in Africa. There is presumably migrants from the North Pacific that swim all the way around Russia in the Arctic Ocean and then come down the Atlantic.
I need to look at a map.
So
they're going the opposite way all the way around instead of just going direct.
Well, no, they're going from, let's just say where are
they starting?
They could start in Mexico. They could start in Japan.
Okay.
They go north up into that Russia, Alaska region.
Okay, I'm hearing you.
Then they go north past Russia into the Arctic Ocean. And then
around.
Swim all the way past all of Russia until you reach the European side and then come down.
They're crazy.
How do they do that? That is such a long journey. When I read that, I was like, I had to look at a map too. I was like, wait, this doesn't make sense. How are they doing this? They literally swim the entire length of Russia, which is probably in itself like 10,000 miles or some shit like that.
So 14,000 miles is like not even.
That's not including this new Atlantic.
Because that's like on average like what they're doing. But this is like they can swim like 20,000 miles more.
So it's insane. And a study from 2015 looked at some more whale DNA and stuff like that, and indicated that this may not be a historically unique event. That suggesting that over the past 100,000 years, there have been several migrations of gray whales between the Pacific and the Atlantic, with the most large-scale recent migration occurring about 5,000 years ago.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So it's not even like this is the first time that we're seeing these whales go all the way from the Pacific, all the way to the Atlantic, and then maybe even from the Atlantic back to the Pacific. It's like, holy shit.
Yeah.
And generally these migrations were kind of corresponding to times of high temperatures in the Arctic Ocean, which right now we have high temperatures in the Arctic Ocean because of
anthropogenic climate change.
There we go.
He loves when I say anthropogenic because you
have to specialize that it's human caused.
Yes.
Because if you just say climate change, people are like, oh, it's like, no, you people caused it.
Yeah.
So this is what I also found was kind of interesting. So researchers use a genetic approach to estimate pre-whaling abundance of gray whales to see how many there were. And they guess their population size was something.
Whaling is banned now, right?
It's been banned. I'm going to get into all the legislation and law right after this.
Okay.
But yeah, it's been banned for quite a while. But pre-whaling, they estimated that it was somewhere between 76 to 118,000 individuals.
Wow.
So almost 4 times what we have right now.
Wow.
But they speculate that the ocean ecosystem has changed a lot since then and probably can't withstand pre-whaling era populations.
Definitely not.
So what we're at now isn't obviously great, but we're putting in the right work to get them back to what they could probably be at in our current situation of the ocean. Because we're not going to get back to what that ever was, but we're getting closer to what
numbers are increasing.
Yeah, we're getting the numbers increasing. We're getting closer to what they can feasibly probably
because of conservation efforts.
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yes, between the conservation efforts. Okay. So now I'm going to go to some legislation and law because there is a lot of this. So international conservation measures were first enacted in the 1930s and 40s to protect whales from
exploitation.
Exploitation. That's how we do it. And then in the mid 1980s is when the International Whaling Commission instituted a moratorium. Yeah, moratorium on commercial whaling. It's like where you put like just a stop. It's like no more of this.
Okay.
Do you ever used to watch that show, Whale Wars?
No, what is that?
You never seen that show?
No.
So it was a show on like I think it was like on Discovery or one of those ones. And
Whale Wars?
Whale Wars. And what people would do is they would find illegal whaling vessels and like try and like shoot the people on the ships and like sink it.
Wait,
Yes.
this is on TV?
Yes.
When you're a kid?
Yeah. Because they were anti
But you can't just
whaling.
go shooting people. Well, I guess in the open sea,
If they don't
maybe
respond,
you
I
can.
was gonna say if they're not like responding to your legislation, like they don't pull over or whatever, and they fire or you fire at them, then it's probably fair game.
It's like Coast Guard, or who's
It-
enforcing this?
it's a great question. I need to look back at that show, but it was crazy.
If anybody's seen that show, please comment.
Yeah, Whale Wars down below. I think it was called Whale Wars. Pretty sure it was. And then Congress passed the Marine Mammal Protection Act in 1972, which was in response to increasing concerns among the scientists and the public that significant declines were happening in a lot of the marine species. Not only the whales, but whales was definitely,
mammals.
yeah, just whale was part of it. This was the first legislation to mandate an ecosystem-based approach to marine resource management, which is pretty cool. And 3 federal entities share responsibility for implementing this Marine Mammal Protection Act. The 3 are...
Is that like, so is this essentially the creation of MPAs?
No.
What do you mean, like ecosystem change?
Because they're not looking at a single species, they're looking at mammals. So the 3 federal entities that share responsibilities for this is NOAA, and that's responsible for the protection of whales, dolphins, porpoises, seals, and sea lions. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, which is responsible for the protection of walrus, manatees, sea otters, and polar bears. And then Marine Mammal Commission, which provides independent, science-based oversight of domestic and international policies and actions of federal agencies addressing human impact on marine mammals and their ecosystems. So that's probably where they got it from. It's more the Marine Mammal Commission and looking at the science-based and how everything aligns and how we need to do it to make sure the ecosystem is okay. So after all this legislation, you've heard all of its migration routes. Now I'm going to talk about some recent stuff, what's going on. Between December 17th of 2018 through November 9th of 2023, so very recently, we had this thing called the Unusual Mortality Event, UME, which involved a lot of gray whales stranded along our west coast or the eastern North Pacific, on California, Oregon, Washington, Alaska, all that. There was a lot of whales being stranded. And this peaked during December of 2 different years, of 2018 and 2022, is when there was a lot of dead whales coming up. This is insane when I heard this. In those 5 years, 690 gray whales strandings were out there.
What?
Including 347 in the United States, 316 in Mexico, and 27 in Canada.
Whoa.
Yeah, a ton. And the preliminary cause of this is pretty much what they equate down to as localized ecosystem changes in the subarctic and Arctic feeding areas, and which is just like changes in food, malnutrition, decreased birth rates, and increased mortality. So just their food population isn't the same as what it was before.
So it just can't like sustain the entire population?
Yeah, and they're just kind of, during this period, they were just kind of dying out because they weren't.
But also, why are they washing up? Because usually like there's these things called whale falls. Have you heard of that?
Oh, where they drop to the bottom of the ocean? And
yeah, why wouldn't they just drop to the bottom of the ocean?
Because they have to. When a whale
That's
dies,
how most whales die.
When a whale dies, it floats.
Yeah, I know.
Until something eats it and it pops the gas, and then it drops down.
Yeah.
So if it never gets eaten or dropped or pops the gas and it never drops down, then it'll just end up on a beach.
But why isn't that happening?
What?
Why isn't it getting eaten?
I mean, it's just like, it could be just different areas. Maybe there's not a pack of orcas right there or whatever. But they're just washing up on the beach.
Suspicious.
Why is that suspicious?
Suspicious.
Anyways, necropsy.
Yeah, necropsy.
Necropsy findings from a subset of the dead whales.
Which means kind of like a human
dissection.
Like after death investigation.
Yeah. They looked at a subset of the dead gray whales, found malnutrition, like I was saying, as a common cause of death, and did not identify any underlying disease. However, there were other things that obviously played in this, like killer whale predation, entanglement, vessel strikes. These also caused deaths within the 690.
Yeah.
But the main thing that they were looking at was the decrease in food. That was in their malnutrition. That was like the main underlying thing. And biotoxins were found in some carcasses, but nothing like crazy to where you would explain the whole death upon that biotoxin.
Yeah.
So here's like kind of their prediction of how the population went during that period. They said the eastern gray whale population declined from 20,000 whales to about 14,000 whales.
Wow.
So almost 45% decrease in just 5 years, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And then also the calf reduction declined from 950 calves in 2018 to 217 calves in 22. So it's not only the population was dying, they weren't rebounding at the same speed because the breeding rates and the birth rates were also declining.
Wow. So sad.
And then that's not it.
Oh,
If you saw
gosh.
recently on the news, like literally last month or so, we're recording in June right now, right? It's June?
Yeah, it's June 8th.
June 8th, yeah. But between May 21st and May 28th, 6 gray whales were washed up in San Francisco area.
That's what I think I was seeing.
Yes, that's the one you're talking about, yeah. And so far in 2025, 14 gray whales in the greater San Francisco Bay Area have washed up.
I wonder why right there.
Well, here's the thing. At least 3 of the gray whale deaths were being suspected as vehicle hits.
Oh,
Because like I was saying, there's a huge port in San Francisco.
yeah.
A lot of traffic going on right there. But I had been seeing stuff in the news about this other thing that I thought was completely related to this. So I'm going to talk about it just for a second because it also plays a huge part in marine mammals, which is domoic acid.
Yeah, domoic acid poisoning.
Yes, domoic acid poisoning, which is from an algae called Pseudonitskia, and it causes the production of a neurotoxin called domoic acid. The toxin can cause seizures, brain damage, and death. It does not affect humans unless it is consumed in contaminated food, but we actually test for domoic acid in a lot of our like retail fish and shellfish and stuff like that. And 2025 has been the 4th year in a row that this toxic algae bloom has led to mass die-off of marine animals, mainly killing sea lions and dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
So still mammals. And in 2023, which was the worst domoic acid bloom in California's recorded history, 120 dead dolphins in 1 month.
Oh my gosh.
So
And what are we at nowadays?
it's still bad, but it's not as bad as that. 2023 was the worst.
But I know it's like a big problem right now for seals and sea
Yes,
lions, but
yes.
maybe it's just like more in the news now than it was then. Or maybe we were paying less attention.
I think we're just paying less attention, honestly. We're in college. We're
Yeah.
really looking at that stuff. But yeah, it's crazy. Because, I mean, you hear about all these whales dying. You got to think, okay, well, maybe this domoic acid is playing some sort of effect into it.
Yeah, because if it's killing other marine mammals, like where's the investigation into like these large whale
Exactly.
marine mammals?
And there's like a lot of them washing up, and they're saying
And
malnutrition.
maybe it's like not
The primary factor.
Yeah.
It's definitely another arrow in its back. It's
Totally.
that's bringing it down.
Mm-hmm.
And to finish it off, I found some recent research about these gray whales. This one I thought was kind of cool, so I just want to end it off on a little bit more of a high note, a little bit different, not as depressing. This one is a little bit depressing, but not in the same way. I don't know. This is called downsized. Gray whales using an alternative foraging ground have smaller morphology. So, like I was saying, the gray whales generally feed up in the subarctic and Arctic regions.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a small subgroup called the Pacific Coast Feeding Group, which is only about 200-ish individuals, and they feed between Northern California and British Columbia, Canada. So, like, really, like Oregon, Washington, Vancouver Island, they're right there, and they just hang out there. They don't go any farther north. And what this study identified was that both these groups, the normal group that goes all the way up to Alaska and the group that feeds right there, have similar growth rates, but the ones that feed in the California, Oregon, Washington region are smaller lengths and have smaller skulls and flukes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, okay, why does that matter? And they're saying differences in skull and fluke morphology is associated with differences in like habitat, feeding strategies, and prey. So they're probably trying to eat different things or getting into crevices. And there's no genetic difference between these two populations. But,
None?
But evidence supports differences in mitochondrial DNA.
That's huge.
Which supports maternal fidelity in the foraging ground. So it's pretty much like if you're part of this subgroup, you're going to stay there.
Yeah.
But they're not really recruiting other groups to join them. And that is what I have for the episode.
That was so fun. I learned so much. Okay, I have one question. How do they sleep?
I have no idea.
Okay, look it up.
Let's look it up. Okay, here we go. So, whales sleep in a process called unihemispheric sleep. This is what they do. It's where half of their brain rests at a time while the other half remains alert.
No way.
So this allows the animal to remain conscious, surface for air, and keep an eye out for potential predators while the other half is sleeping.
No.
Yes. That is crazy. I did not know that.
What?
Yeah.
So they never have their entire brain off. Because they just
Well, there are
think.
probably times where they're fully awake,
Right.
but then there's probably times where they're half
Yes.
awake.
I wonder how it's like how they choose which half.
They probably don't even choose. It's probably just like instinctual.
No, right. But like why? Why left versus right?
Yeah, I don't know.
And in what times? And like do they ever like do left, wake up fully, left, wake up, right, right? Like what's the pattern?
Who knows about that? That's
that would be crazy to know.
Yeah, but it also feels like irrelevant information to know.
No, because your different sides of your brain do different things.
For humans.
Is that not true in every brain?
I don't know.
We're not neuroscientists.
We're not neuroscientists. If there's any neuroscientists in our comment section,
let us know.
Let us know.
Wow, so interesting. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So they're never fully asleep. Well, in our
never
terms,
100% brain off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your thought on this episode?
Love it.
A lot of information.
I learned so much. Great episode.
This one took me like.
Wait, do they have barnacles?
Yeah. That's part of their markings also. With like the parasite little white marks, it's also barnacles is how you can like identify each other.
I thought so.
But yeah, this one took me like 4 or 5 hours worth of research, just getting all this like little different population stuff, how they do everything, legislation and law, because there's a lot of different aspects to this one animal.
Yeah. Very interesting. Thanks, Chris.
Yeah. Well, if you guys enjoyed, hopefully you guys can leave a 5-star review, drop a follow.
And a comment.
About what animal you guys want to see next. I keep an eye out for them. Trust me. I got a tab on my phone with all the ones I see people dropping in there. And I really hope you guys continue to listen, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Bye.
See ya.